Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a Ukraine war breaking news update, a bit of geopolitics to talk about concerning the war in Ukraine and indeed American security. And actually the breaking news bit is a bit at the end I'm going to talk about, or nearer the end, which is that John Bolton, the former national security advisor, actually under Trump before he was fired, who has since been a bit anti-Trump, but he's very hawkish on stuff like Ukraine. He has had his home raided in what looks like a retributive FBI move in line with what we've seen the Trump administration do, which is full-on retribution over anyone who speaks ill of Trump or criticizes him or is seen to have investigated him previously. So we're going to deal with this whole kind of idea of retribution, the idea that it looks very much like autocracy, what Trump is doing, and it's not good. We're actually going to start with something else that is far worse in its global ramification than a single person, John Bolton, being targeted, and that is that Trump's intelligence chief, the infamous Tulsi Gabbard, who is pro-Bashar al-Assad, pro-Putin, and is exactly the wrong person to have in charge of 18 different departments in the intelligence domain. She has ordered the halt to intelligence sharing on the Russia-Ukraine peace talks among Five Eyes allies, and this is coming from CBS. CBS has confirmed the Director of National Intelligence, Gabbard, ordered that all US intel on Russia-Ukraine peace talks be marked NOFORN, barring sharing with Five Eyes. So Five Eyes partners are, so it's the US obviously, then Canada, UK, Australia and New Zealand. And what they wanted to do is to say, right, instead of having five separate intelligence agencies doing broadly similar things, so each of us would be spying on, someone from Russia. And what's the point of five nations doing that when we can just combine, and we can combine our expertise? We all are singing off the same song sheet, ideologically, politically speaking. And so therefore, let's combine our intelligence services and amalgamate effectively, and we'll share intelligence among each other equally. And now Tulsi Gabbard, after this being the case for however many years, has said, no, we're not going to share with those other nations anything to do with the Ukraine-Russia peace talks. Only public info is exempt, obviously. Critics warn this could erode trust within the alliance. This is absolutely horrific. And it's really interesting. Yesterday I did that sort of breaking news update on Trump seeming to change his tune on Ukraine ahead of possibly long-distance strikes within Russia from Ukraine's FP1 and FP5 munitions. And he said that really strongly worded thing saying Ukraine must be able to attack and not just play defense. They must be able to play offense as well. Biden didn't allow that to happen, and that's ridiculous. So blah, blah, blah. And then that picture of him pointing at Putin's chest. And so this was much more bellicose rhetoric and imagery, and allowing Ukraine to fight without its hands tied behind its back. It seems that kind of approach. And it's weird. Like, so much is going on here that you're wondering, where the hell is the US positioning itself? What's its stance? If it's stopping sharing things with other nations, but then saying, actually, we kind of pro-Ukraine in this context, what's going on there? One of my theories of the US, which has been kind of borne out by what an awful lot of other people have said in the know, as in people within the administration or associated with the administration, from what I've read from or seen from other analysts and news stations and whatnot, is that Trump, my theory is that Trump doesn't actually really know what his administration is doing half the time. And you can tell this because when he's asked about things that he should know about if he had been briefed, we know he doesn't take intelligence briefings. Like earlier on when they'd done some stats, he was taking one every he had taken 14 intelligence briefings in the same time, in the same time that Biden had taken 90, right? And he was, I think, taking an intelligence briefing once every 2 weeks. So if you're taking out once a fortnight when you should be having one every day, then you don't know what's going on in the wider world. But he doesn't seem to know what's going on in his own administration either. So whenever he's asked about something, whether what's in a big, beautiful bill is like, and saying, oh, we can't cut Medicaid, and then it goes and cuts Medicaid. And then, he's asked a question, he says, I don't know, who told you that? And he's like, well, your own national intelligence advisor told us this, or when it's to do with Iran, and he just doesn't seem to know what is going on in his own administration, and what people are saying, what people are doing, or just what is happening in the world. In terms of news, like this has happened, that's happened, and he's asked about it in a press conference, and he goes, I don't know anything about that, I'll have to get back to you. And what we are seeing is that Trump is deeply ignorant about stuff that's going on, and he's very much curated. There are people around him that curate his knowledge and curate what he gets to listen to and read, and it's basically just stuff coming from Fox News, really pro-Trump stuff. Now the problem is that arguably he doesn't really have a grasp of what's going on in the US, but in his administration, and he ends up becoming a puppet of the people around him. So whether it be, like I keep saying, Stephen Miller, who appears to be writing his entire government's policy at the moment, or whether it's Tulsi Gabbard, he is just victim to what they decide. So the question here is, did he have anything to do with, did he even know that Tulsi Gabbard had stopped sharing, or had ordered intelligence to be stopped to not be shared with Five Eyes, or does he find out as an afterthought? How much is he driving that government, and how much is that government just being driven by all sorts of people around him who are doing things almost unilaterally? And it's dangerous when some of those people have weird ideologies. So Tulsi Gabbard has a weird ideology. The head of the HHS, RFK Jr., like head of Human and Health Services and medical department, essentially has weird ideology. And end up doing things, and Trump probably doesn't know about it until he's told about it in a press conference, and then he has to go, yeah, it's all right by me type thing. So here, it's just deeply, deeply worrying. Right? This is a time when we need to be as united as possible with common enemies of Russia and arguably China, and then the challenges of India as well, maybe in certain contexts. We need to be united, and yet we have Trump's administration doing all sorts of things like this. So Gabbard signed a directive barring the sharing of information with the Five Eyes Alliance. The directive limited the distribution of intelligence into information that had already been publicly released, and compartmentalized intelligence on peace talks within agencies where the intelligence originated from. According to CBS News, the directive also does not prohibit the sharing of information obtained through diplomatic means, nor does it affect information sharing on US military planning, including aid to Ukraine. No rationale was provided for the decision as peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, brokered by the US, continue. The White House did not respond to the news agency's request, that's CBS, to comment on the matter. Just what is going on here? So, Tulsi Gabbard has already stirred controversy with her comments on Ukraine, having echoed in early 2022 Russian President Vladimir Putin's justification for the invasion of Ukraine, attributing the cause not to Moscow, but to the Biden administration's failure to acknowledge Russia's legitimate security concerns. Quote, Russia's legitimate security concerns. So Tulsi Gabbard is compromised by Russia. I would happily say that. Not happily, I'm very sad about it, I'm angry about it, but I think I'm comfortable to say that this woman is a Russian asset in some way, right? She is compromised, whether wittingly or not. And that is a serious problem for the United States, because she is at the heart of the intelligence infrastructure. But it actually gets worse, right? So before we get there, though, Joe Walsh says, and he's a former Republican, as I've said from the beginning, none of our allies should share intelligence with America as long as Trump is in the White House and Tulsi Gabbard has any access to intelligence. Neither Trump nor Gabbard can be trusted with intelligence, and I would absolutely agree. But remember, Tulsi Gabbard has just revoked the security clearances of 37 current and former government officials. And these are people who are basically the entirety of the Russian analysts in the CIA. These are public servants who know the most about Russia, and they have had their security clearances taken away because she's accused them singled them out for having been engaged in, quote, the politicization or weaponization of intelligence to advance personal or partisan goals, failing to safeguard classified information, failing to adhere to professional analytic tradecraft standards, and other unspecified detrimental conduct. In other words, they have been involved in, as they were ordered to, commanded to by their superiors, to investigate Russian influence in the 2020 election. Now, that doesn't mean that they are weaponizing the intelligence services, at least themselves. They're just following orders as you would expect a public servant to do. This is incredibly problematic and, again, very retributive. The memo did not offer evidence to back up the accusations. Many of the officials who were targeted left the government years ago after serving in both senior national security positions and lower profile roles far from the public eye. Some worked on matters that have long infuriated Trump, like the intelligence community assessment that Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election on his behalf, and several signaled their concerns about Trump by signing a critical letter in 2019 that was highlighted on social media last month by right-wing provocateur and close Trump ally Laura Loomer. The action is part of a broader Trump administration campaign to wield the levers of government against perceived adversaries and reflects the president's continued distrust of career intelligence officials has long seen as working against his interests. The revocation of clearances has emerged as a go-to tactic for the administration, a strategy critics say risks chilling dissenting voices from an intelligence community accustomed to drawing on a range of viewpoints before formulating an assessment. This is, again, what autocracies do, that you take away the checks and balances that are holding you to account, and people that have done that previously. That retribution is a hallmark of this kind of approach to governance, this very much authoritarian approach to governance. But it's not just that. So Tulsi Gabbard is apparently, and what the claims are that from both of these moves is that it's about reforming the intelligence apparatus. But when you start looking at what some of these reforms might be, you're thinking, it looks a little bit more like compromise and doing the Kremlin's bidding than reform. So, quote, among other changes, and this is from the BBC article, Tulsi Gabbard announces plans to cut intelligence staff by half. So this is a reform. So look at all the things that have been happening. Among other changes announced by Gabbard, the restructuring eliminates I wonder what is going to be eliminated here. I wonder if this is to the benefit of Russia or not. Let's have a look. The Foreign Malign Influence Center, which monitors foreign efforts to influence the US public. Oh yes, that's entirely what she's getting rid of. Any attempt to understand and to mitigate against foreign disinformation campaigns, Russian disinformation campaigns, but you could add China and North Korea and Iran to that as well, she's getting rid of. Also eliminates the Cyber Threat Intelligence Integration Center, getting rid of cyber activity in the cyber domain to work against foreign cyber attacks. It's just absolutely incredible. Like, this whole video I'm doing for you now is a case of the United States handing the keys of power to Russia and other adversaries, and not just the keys of power, but just capitulating to them and just offering themselves. Like, we are not going to act against you now. We're getting rid of all of the ways that we can stop you influencing us. So we welcome your foreign influence into our society. This is absolutely scary. If I was American, I would be going absolutely nuts at the moment. I'd be apoplectic with what is taking place in the deconstruction of the United States. It is absolutely insane. Trump has dismissed the senior CIA Russia Eurasia expert who helped oversee the 2016 intel report on Russian election interference, according to The Economist. Tulsi Gabbard revoked his clearance along with 36 others accusing him of betraying the Constitution. So that's along with what I was just saying, but also just basically getting rid of half the intelligence staff as well. And we have this from the former CIA director and State Department Foreign Service officer, William Burns. So former CIA director has written a letter to the people who have lost their jobs. A letter to America's discarded public servants. You all deserved better. So people who lost their jobs and had their clearances revoked, etc., etc. For 3.5 decades as a career diplomat, I walked across the lobby of the State Department countless times, inspired by the stars and stripes and humbled by the names of patriots etched into our memorial wall. It was heartbreaking to see so many of you crossing that same lobby in tears following the reduction in force in July, carrying cardboard boxes with family photos and everyday remains of proud careers in public service. After years of hard jobs in hard places, diffusing crises, tending alliances, opening markets and helping Americans in distress, you deserved better. And he goes on to talk about this deconstruction of the CIA, of the foreign diplomatic corps. And he says, and I'm just picking out a few excerpts from this. No, this is not about reform. It is about retribution. It is about breaking people and breaking institutions by sowing fear and mistrust throughout our government. It's about paralyzing public servants, making them apprehensive about what they say, how it might be interpreted, and who might report on them. It is about deterring anyone from daring to speak truth to power. I served 6 presidents, 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats. It was my duty to faithfully implement their decisions, even when I didn't agree with them. Career public servants have a profound obligation to execute the decisions of elected leaders, whether we voted for them or not. The discipline is essential to any democratic system. That sentence is incredibly important. Many of our fellow officers purged at the State Department were doing just that, faithfully executing decisions that ran contrary to their professional advice and preferences. They may not have supported the cancellation of Fulbright scholarships, the resettlement of Afrikaners, the expulsion of the Afghan partners who fought and bled with us for 2 decades. So those are 3 of the things that the Trump administration has done that they faithfully executed, even though it was, those decisions were pretty horrific. But they implemented those policies anyway. Still, those officers were fired. Tensions between elected political leaders and career public servants are hardly new. Each of the presidents I served harboured periodic concerns about the reliability and sluggishness of government bureaucracy. Although individual officers who could be remarkably resourceful, the State Department as an institution was rarely accused of being too agile or too full of initiative. There is a difference, however, between fixing bureaucratic malaise and hammering professional public servants into politicised robots. That's what autocrats do, he says. That's what autocrats do. They cow public servants into submission, and in doing so, they create a closed system that is free of opposing views and inconvenient concerns. Their policy making, their ability to realise their aims, suffers as a result. Now, I will add to that what he's doing in the press corps. So the White House press corps in the White House has been changed. They now have right-wing internet influencers sitting in chairs. And the questions are completely softball. And now we're starting to see at pressers and certain conferences, there are literally no members of the press who are going to ask difficult questions to Trump. I saw an analysis on this recently, going through a set of the questions he was asked at one particular event, and it was all just obsequious softballing that was absolutely horrific, sort of thing that you would never get in the UK. The UK has a really strong culture of our journalists holding whoever they're interviewing, but particularly the people in power, holding their feet to the coals. The United States is moving away from being able to do that. The mainstream media is freaking important, right? You may not like the mainstream media because they might not agree with you, but their job is to hold the leadership to account, to hold their feet to the fire. And that is not happening anymore. He has control of the press and is now having more and more press events where he is simply not asked a single difficult question. It's absolutely horrific. And we'll go on later in this Atlantic article. We live in a new era, says Burns, one that is marked by major power competition and a revolution in technology, and one that is more confusing, complicated and combustible than at any time before. I believe the United States still has a better hand to play than many of our rivals, unless we squander the moment and throw away some of our best cards. That's exactly what the current administration is doing. We cannot afford to further erode the sources of power at home and abroad. The demolition of institutions, the dismantling of USAID, the Voice of America, the planned 50% reduction in the State Department's budget is part of a bigger strategic self-immolation. We've put at risk the network of alliances and partnerships that is the envy of our rivals. We've even gutted the research funding that powers our economy. And this is reference to the funding for cancer research, NIH, funding of all sorts of things, going from like woke climate change, oh my goodness, to obviously woke cancer research, whatever. Like the funding of science has been slashed. You've got RFK Jr. making obscene decisions concerning vaccinations. You've got Tulsi Gabbard doing all the things I've already shown and expressed, revoking security clearances, cutting staff, and essentially giving the keys of power to Russia by not protecting against cyber attacks and by not protecting against foreign interference. It's absolutely insane. If intelligence analysts at the CIA saw our rivals engage in the kind of great power suicide, this kind of great power suicide, we would break out the bourbon. Instead, the sound we hear is champagne glasses clinking in the Kremlin or at Shanghai. Of course, we should put our own national interests first, but winning in an intensely competitive world means thinking beyond narrowly defined self-interest and building coalitions that counterbalance our adversaries. It requires working together on problems without passports, such as climate change and global health challenges, which no single country can solve on its own. This was one of my biggest, and when I debated this in public in Bournemouth in 2016, one of my arguments for staying in the EU from the UK's point of view was solving global problems. Global problems need global solutions, and getting together and working together as closely with other nations as possible is how you solve global problems. But if you go into little England, or if you go into little America thinking and retreat from the world and then cut off your alliances and then also allow the other competitors a leg up, then you aren't going to be helping to solve global problems at all here. It's just this is just horrific. Anyway, the article goes, it's a very good article. It's a letter, isn't it? And I just want to read you just the end of it because it's quite sad, actually, I think. Many years ago, I was finishing graduate school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my professional life. My father sent me a note. He was a career army officer, a remarkably decent man, and the best model of public service I've ever known. Nothing can make you prouder, my dad wrote, than to serve the country with honour. I've spent the past 40 years learning the truth of this advice. I am deeply proud to have served alongside so many of you. Your expertise and your often quietly heroic public service have made an immeasurable contribution to the best interests of our country. You swore an oath not to a party or a president, but to a constitution, to the people of the United States, to protect us, to defend us, to keep us safe. You fulfilled your oath, just as those still serving in government are trying their best to fulfill theirs. So will the next generation of public servants, all of us who have a profound stake in shaping their inheritance. I worry about how much damage we will do in the meantime. There is still a chance that the next generation will serve in a world where we curb the worst of our current excesses, stop portraying the ideals of public service, stop firing experts just because of their statistics are unwelcome, and stop blowing up institutions that matter to our future. There is still a chance that the next generation could be present in the creation of a new era for America in the world, in which we're mindful of our many strengths but more careful about overreach. There is sadly room for doubt about those chances. At this pivotal moment, there's a growing possibility that we will inflict so much damage on ourselves and our place in the world that those future public servants will instead find themselves present at the destruction, a self-inflicted generational setback to American leadership and national security. But what I do not doubt is the abiding importance of public service and the value of what you have done with yours, and I know that you will continue to serve in different ways, helping to stand watch over our great experiment, even as too many of our elected leaders seem to be turning their backs on it. With appreciation to you and your families, Bill Burns. So I think, it's really reflective of where the United States is at the moment, and it is on a course directly headed for autocracy. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And when you start seeing John Bolton having his home raided, you start thinking this is not good. or you continue thinking, because I've been thinking this for a long time. The Trump administration says Felix O'Brien is actively attacking and harassing its enemies, using the power of law enforcement. Can't wait to see how the Conservatives defend this. Shortly before 7 a.m. this morning, the FBI and Montgomery County Police were seen at the Bethesda home of John Bolton, who served as National Security Advisor for part of Donald Trump's first term. And the head of the FBI is boasting above it. You would think they would be just a little embarrassed about becoming a fully fledged police state. FBI Director Prakash Patel on Twitter: no one is above the law. FBI agents on mission. And, you know, what we understand is that they were searching for classified information, but we don't really know what else was going on there. What else has taken place? Trump says that he wasn't briefed on the FBI raid on John Bolton's home. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. He wasn't briefed, and yet it happened. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. He's a real sort of lowlife. He's not a smart guy, but he could be very unpatriotic. I'm going to find out. Oh dear, that's really quite depressing. What else do we have? So Trump not telling the truth about a bunch of stuff. FBI now searching John Bolton's DC office as well. So they seem to be going to town on him. What else? Oh goodness me, yeah. Then attacking the Treasury Department's number 2. I think. Oh no, the Treasury Department number 2 is leaving the administration. It's the Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook said he will fire her if she doesn't resign. So anyway, it's I think, you know, not looking good at the moment in the United States. So Trump saying he wasn't briefed. So I'm then going to leave you with this. And I just want to give you what I tell you here in a wider context of things that are happening. And there's so much I could talk about with the growing autocracy in the United States, whether it be to do with ICE raids on people and all sorts of different things. I talked a little bit about the press, but I could say an awful lot about the press. I could talk about lawfare and the weaponization of law and so on and so forth. But actually, let's go to this. So the Trump administration is planning on reviewing all 55 million foreigners in the United States with a valid visa, and they want to do that for security, for safety threats, and for supporting terrorists. Now, this is not cool. It looks like it's a way of being, again, like overtly authoritarian, and they are going to check the social media. Although in this independent article, they say they might do. There's another article, they say they are doing that. So the Trump administration plans to review the status of all 55 million foreign nationals in the US with a valid travel visa to root out security threats and anyone supporting terrorists. Marco Rubio's State Department said in a statement it intends to commence a process of continuous vetting and revoke the visas of anyone it deems guilty of potential ineligibility. So this looks entirely like what you would see in Russia, in East Germany, in Eastern Europe during the Cold War. Things like any indicators of overstays, criminal activities, threats to public safety, engaging in any form of terrorist activity or providing support to a terrorist organisation would provide grounds for the removal of visas and deportation, the statement said. Blah, 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 etc., etc. And then it goes on to talk about it would be... ICE announced last week it would be vetting visa applicants for association with anti-American or terrorist groups or others that support or promote anti-Semitic terrorism. Students have become a particular focus for administration scrutiny in the first half of the year of Trump's second term, with foreign nationals taking part in campus protests against Israel's actions in Gaza closely watched for evidence of anti-Semitism or statements of support for Hamas or Hezbollah. And then... there was talk about revoking foreign drivers' visas and all sorts of things. Then it's social media is the worry, so I'm just going to find where that is. Here we are. Immigration experts have already sounded the alarm, with David G. Bayer of the Cato Institute, so their Libertarian Institute, think tank, warning that the administration may be about to, quote, proactively conduct reviews of social media posts and revoke visas based out not on conduct but speech. And that's what we see reported here in Euroactive. Trump administration to review all 55 million people with US visas for violations. And again, we have the idea that social media officials say the reviews will include all visa holders' social media accounts, law enforcement and immigration records in their home counties, along with any actionable violations of US law committed while they are in the United States. This is just outright authoritarianism, and it is incredibly scary. And that is the kind of the context of all of this. You've just got every move that the Trump administration is making, whether it's in terms of the CIA or in terms of, public service workers or whatever. It is a move towards not having anyone criticizing or holding the government to account, which then allows them even more power and even greater remit to do whatever they want, because there's no veto to them. There's no veto from the press, no veto from the public, because if you have a visa, then you're going to be thrown out the country. No threat from anyone who's any kind of migrant. You'll be thrown out the country. But I'm going to leave you with what I think is even worse, and pay attention to these words. So I'm going to leave you with this. This is Stephen Miller together with Pete Hegseth, I think J.D. Vance as well, like going through DC. So Trump has lied about crime in DC, right? He's lied about the figures. That's one of the things that you saw in here with regard to... where do we have it? Trump repeats false claims about DC murder rate. Speaking to reporters earlier, President praised the fact that there have been no murders in the nation's capital in the last week because he sent in the National Guard. DC was a hellhole and now it's safe. That's the first time in anybody's memory that you haven't had a murder in a week. And then the DC police data says, well, actually, you had it in a week in July. So straight away, you're lying. But anyway, he sent in the National Guard, which is, again, authoritarian, right? And then you've got Hegseth and Stephen Miller, Stephen Miller is a fascist. He's an overt fascist, and he is the person controlling Donald Trump and the White House. Stephen Miller is the single most important person in the American government at the moment, and I think everything that's happening in the US is predominantly coming from him, and he is a horrible, horrible, horrible human being. And I've played you videos of him ranting before and it being despicable, and even going back to when he was a younger man, and there's videos out of him like just saying horrific things. I mean, he's an actual fascist, this guy. He is. So anyway, listen to his words here when he's gone into DC and he's ranting again about, well, you'll see.
Here's the most important point. There are residents who lived in Washington, D.C. their entire lives. Their parents lived here. Their grandparents lived here. And they have lived for generations in intolerable conditions of crime and decay. There are parts of the city, I moved to the city 20 years ago. There are places where I've seen graffiti that has been untouched for 2 decades. There are homeless encampments that have made it impossible for families to use public parks and public recreation for as long as I've lived here. There are hundreds of residents of this city who are shot in street violence every single year, making it one of the most violent cities on planet Earth.
And of course, this is untrue. Broadly speaking, the highest crime areas of the highest crime in the US states, in terms of states, are red states, or Republican states, but because they've got lower population densities, they get away with, it's not very violent here, but per 1,000 people, they are more violent, but they ignoring the statistics, and they're aiming for blue cities. It's why LA was attacked with ICE and the National Guard, and it's why DC is as well, because these are democratic strongholds.
And for too long, 99% of this city has been terrorized by 1% of this city. And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots, they have no connections to this.
Pete Hegseth is laughing there, but this is a piece I want to finish with, because where Stephen Miller has previously been ranting about immigrants and illegal immigrants and wanting to get rid of immigrants from the country and ridding them of 15 million migrants. And then, 55 million visa holders are going to be looked at. We have had Trump talk previously about how the gulag in El Salvador could be a useful place to send homegrown criminals or people are worried that actually you're going to end up seeing enemies of the state, enemies of Trump and Stephen Miller being sent to gulags. Stephen Miller is now starting to blame communists. Now, there are no communists in the US, practically speaking, right? What's he talking about when he's talking about communists? He's talking about liberals and he's talking about Democrats. So when you substitute the word communists for Democrats and liberals, this is incredibly chilling stuff.
Terrorized by 1% of the city. And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots. They have no connections to the city. They have no families they are raising in this city. They have no one that they are sending to school in this city. They have no jobs in this city. They have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today. Because me, Pete, and the Vice President are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here. We're going to dismantle those networks, and we're going to prove that a city can serve for the law-abiding citizens who live there. We are not going to let the communists destroy a great American city, let alone the nation's capital. And let's just also address one other thing. All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been. And by the way, most of the citizens who live in Washington, D.C. are black. This is not a city that has had any safety for its black citizens for generations. And President Trump is the one who is fixing that with the support of the Metropolitan Police Department, the support of the National Guard, and our federal law enforcement officers. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
So, like, although there's no, we're not, it's not like we're going to lock up the communists and these stupid white old hippies.
He ought to know from the bulwark.
But the idea is that you have got a beginning of this idea that communists are the bad guys, and this is like McCarthy era, where they're going to start rooting out Democrats, essentially liberals who are shouting them down, like people who are just openly criticizing JD Vance when he walks through Union Station. Like, that's what he's referring to. There are people that are shouting at them, giving them a hassle for doing what they're doing, and it goes. You start joining all of this up. You're taking away the checks and balances of your government. You are not allowing your government to be held to account. You are stopping foreign interference mitigation. So you are welcoming foreign interference into your country. You're handing the keys of power to Russia. You're stopping cyber defenses against Russia. You are getting rid of anyone that's ever investigated Donald Trump and his administration previously. You are purging the government, so that only and people that you replace them with have to pass these loyalty tests that we're hearing are taking place in the Department of Defense, in the Pentagon, where like you have to sit down and either be interviewed by Trump if you're a 4-star, or pass the test on how loyal you are to Donald Trump. Nothing to do with the Constitution, nothing to do with the United States of America. All of this is insanely autocratic and authoritarian, and in my opinion, you are seeing the self-immolation, as Burns said, of the United States of America. This is I think the democratic suicide of America. Is it suicide? Or is it just murder? Is it the split personalities of the United States? One is murdering the other. It's just, honestly, it's as bad. It is as bad as I think it is, because all the evidence is coming. I mean, just look at what is happening. And there appears to be no one in the Republican Party with anything that approaches a spine that is willing to stand up to these sorts of things taking place. It's funny, there are a couple of people like Don Bacon who's starting to talk about this, and Tom Tillis has come out and just said, my goodness. So Tom Tillis recently was speaking, but that's because he's quit, right? So he's not going to rerun for his Senate position. Those people suddenly find a backbone. But no one who is serving and is looking to continue to serve is standing up because they're worried that they are going to lose their jobs and not get re-elected. It's party over country. And that is how you allow autocracy to continue to take hold. Truly scary times, truly scary.